welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Mel Nostalgic Runner, and I'm joined here with Whisper. See? Whisper? Come on, see? Hi. Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Sharon, and we are back here, and yes, I'm glad to be back on camera. For those who know, you know, I was sick, fighting either, I'm pretty sure it was a sinus deal. Whenever the weather changes for me, it just, and last week it varied from being in the 30s to 70, 75. That was the variation of degrees. And if you're not from the Midwest, you'll just never understand. But that is the Midwest in a nutshell during this time of the year, where you're going to have these type of temperatures and the body just has to try to figure it out. And my body didn't really work on figuring out this first time around. But anyway, that's not why you're here. You're here because we are it's the second episode of the Real Housewives of Atlanta, season Sweet 16, episode 2 is called Hot Dogs and Hot Mics. And I'm not going to go in any particular order really, because I'm just going off of what I remembered yesterday. And so far, I have some thoughts when it comes to the newbies and my opinions on how things are going so far. And I also do like this episode to me, at least for me, I like this episode a little bit more than the first episode. It wasn't as much giving Love and Hip Hop. First episode, it was okay, but there was just parts of it that was kind of Love and Hip Hop-ish, aka the strip club scene. I know that is very much Atlanta, but it still was kind of Love and Hip Hop-ish for me. And I'm not really mad at it because I was someone who actually used to watch Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. But I just don't want it to be where the worlds are that similar. But it's kind of hard for it not to be, to a certain degree. Especially since this version of Atlanta are younger. They're not, they're different. The vibes of the Housewives, I feel like this time around, is just different than what it was, 16 years ago when all this thing started. It's not the same vibe. The women are of different ages, the careers, like the women, some of them are in music industry. So you are going to have some crossover. So it only makes sense to a certain degree. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the episode. So we're still at Shamia's party. And at this point, we have Shamia asking the questions of like, so Drew, are you and Dennis, are y'all doing that, or are y'all just friends? What is going on? Like, what is really going on? Like, why are you all of a sudden in Dennis's business? He doesn't do music. What is this? And this episode was very Dennis heavy, by the way. Very Dennis heavy. I'm sure Simon Guobadia was upset by this episode because he wanted his camera time and he didn't get any of it other than his pictures. Anyway, neither here nor there. But Drew, of course, is like, oh, why would you think that? Of course not. He just was a lifesaver in my life. This, that, and this, and that. And she's not doing herself any favors. Drew's explanation ain't explaining. And so then Portia's just like, cut the beat. Cut the bull. Cut the bull. What is this? You are low down. You're not a good person. So she proceeds to start going off on Drew. And all the ladies are kind of confused. They're just like, huh? Like, because at first they're thinking, are you mad that Drew is working with Dennis? Or are you mad at... Everyone was confused by why Portia was so mad. Because Portia was triggered this whole episode when it came to this whole thing. And I think there's a couple of things going on with it, but we'll get to it when we get to it. So, but like Drew's just like, wow, you're doing a whole lot. Because Drew is just doing some weird stuff. But that's what Drew does. Drew is the land of confusion. So for one, Portia was upset that, like, she was upset for a couple things. It was just like there's so many things that she was throwing out there that even me as a viewer, I was kind of confused about what she was upset about. But honestly, I really think the main thing she's upset about, even though she's saying she's not upset about it, she's upset with Dennis. She's upset with Drew messing with Dennis at all. She don't care what kind of capacity. I don't think she wants Drew to have any parts of him because, for one, Dennis is a cheater, pumpkin eater, according to her. And they have a very, like, Portia and Dennis have a very toxic relationship. And let Portia tell it it's a one-sided toxicness, even though child is given she's a problem. But, well, they're both the problem, but she doesn't take any accountability for her part of it. Let's just put it that way. Portia and accountability, they don't align. The continents don't meet. It just doesn't happen with them. That's just what it is. But anyway, so Drew's just like, okay, why is this a problem? And then Portia's like, can I break the fourth wall? Can, like, she's like, she does a fourth wall. She's like, producers, can I break the fourth wall? And according to Portia, her main thing and what she's upset about with the Dennis of it all is that Drew, according to her, went behind her back and wanted to film with Dennis, you know, without Portia. She wanted Dennis to be part of her storyline because Dennis is producing and assisting Drew with her music career, according to Drew. So that's why she wanted Dennis to be part of it, but Portia doesn't want anything to do with that. Nothing to do with that. She does not want Dennis in filming with Drew, not whatsoever, whether it's a business relationship or otherwise. And also, too, I don't think Portia believes it's just a business relationship, so I think that's the other reason why she has an issue with it. But let me give you the other reason. Let's get back to that right now. So the other reason, and I know I'm skipping way ahead. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna put a pin in it. We'll get back to it because we'll get back to it. So I forgot how they kind of patched things up. I think the way they patched it up was just like everyone was just kind of confused because you had Kelly in the background like, what is this? And same thing with Britt. And then Kenya's just like, no one understood why Portia was so upset. And Portia just kept swearing up and down that that's the reason was a filming thing. Hey, sorry about that. I should probably give you another warning. I am feeling a lot better from when I wasn't filming, but I do still have a lingering cough, so I might go on and off. The cough still will not leave. Everything else, I feel 100%. It's just this cough. I had this lingering cough ever since, like, I don't know, ever since I got sick, but now it just won't go away. Like, I can run and everything, and I feel fine. Like, even, like, my talking voice is pretty much back to normal. It's just this cough will not go away at all. Okay, sorry about that. So after everyone was kind of confused about it, and then also the other thing that Portia threw out there with Drew is that she was upset that Drew did this photo shoot. Drew took it upon herself to do this photo shoot for this Portia's hairline, the Go Naked hair, and Portia was just like, why would you do that? This is not your line. She's like, well, I was doing you a favor. And the way Drew goes about things is always kind of questionable. So honestly, if it wasn't Portia, we would be looking at Drew sideways. But because Portia isn't necessarily the most trusted source either, you're kind of just looking like it like this. At least for me. The whole entire time, I'm just like, because at the end of the day, whether you believe, you know, Drew is messing with Dennis or not, Drew messing with Dennis would be messed up, but Portia, you're a gutter snipe. Like, Portia acts like a gutter snipe to me, so it's just kind of like, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You kind of did just do what you did before you left this show and came back. Like, You and Drew are not really friends like that in real life. It's pretty clear to me you guys aren't that close. Especially the way you're talking to her in this episode. To me, it's just kind of like you're not really good friends with her. If that was your good Judy, you would. And even if you were good friends with her, why would that bother you that she's working with your baby daddy? And honestly, what do I believe? I don't think Drew's sleeping with Dennis. I don't. I really, really don't. I think Dennis, and yeah, I just don't believe it. I don't believe Dennis is and Drew are hooking up. They just don't even, it don't seem like that will work for me. And also too, I don't think Drew gives gutter snipe vibes. So she wouldn't do what Portia would do. But a hit dog will holler. That is something Portia would do. So I feel like she's just kind of reacting as if everyone acts like her and not everyone acts and moves like her. That's just my opinion on it. For those, by the way, I probably should have gave y'all a warning before. If y'all didn't know, I am not a huge Portia fan. So like, if you are a stan of Portia, you maybe should just like not watch my reviews for Real Housewives of Atlanta, because no, I'm not one of them. So that's kind of what happened there. And then afterwards, I think Kenya some of the ladies left, because it cut to a different scene within the party where they're all by the pool, and Shamia does like kind of like this final toast situation, and she has everyone jump in the pool, and then they proceed to twerk. This was still a little love and hip hop at the end, because I'm like, I'm sorry. And Shamia, we are of similar age. I guess for me, that's just not something I'm going to want to be doing on my birthday, but also too, I'm kind of an alternative girl anyway to a certain degree. So the twerking, I do it, but just it's not going to be that much on the regular. You're not going to find me twerking that often. At least not on camera. But anyway, but I get it. It's your birthday and you having a good time. And so I totally understand it. But anyway, that's kind of how this scene ends. And let's go on to like the rest of the episode, because I feel like this kind of put a little bit of a pin in this, and we'll go into the other things that happened this episode. So also what happened this episode is Kelly. Of all the newbies, I'm liking Kelly a lot. I like Kelly a lot. I find Kelly's story extremely interesting. I find her storyline extremely interesting. I find her interesting. She has a business, she's a boss, and she's going through a hellish divorce. And we're learning more about it. And we learned more about this episode. So we got to see her trying to launch another location of her restaurant, because she has like a chicken and waffles type situation restaurant in the Atlanta area. So it's not necessarily in just the city of Atlanta. It's in like, all the surrounding areas. Around here in Chicago, we call it Chicagoland. If you're not necessarily in Chicago, it's a suburb called Chicagoland. So, Atlanta's version of that, I don't know how you would call that, but the surrounding areas, there we go. We'll just say that. And so she's, we see her with her project manager and some of the people that are helping get that together, and they're kind of running behind on that. She's asking what we need to do to get us back on the timeline, and we find out about that. We also find out that one of her locations closed because her estranged husband closed it on her without her knowing about it. And was messing with the company money. Like a whole mess. And she did actually in this episode, not necessarily in this scene, but throughout the episode, because she did end up going to Britt's house, and they kind of talked about it a little bit more later on in the episode. Apparently, this ex-husband was putting hands on her. The police were being called very regularly. And there was one situation that to me was terrifying. she was in Tulum. She went to Tulum on the girls' trip for like, I guess like her birthday or something like that. And she got to the trip and found out like one of her accounts were like being used and there was nothing she could do about it because she wasn't even there. And the money was just, and he took all the money out while she was out of the country. I know Tulum for a lot of us, especially in the United States of these Americas, like Canada and like Mexico, because they're right there. They're our neighbors. It doesn't feel like that's out of the country, but that still is out of the country. I mean, honestly, if it was across state lines and someone was to do that to me while I'm out of town, I would feel away. But that's crazy considering the fact that they have children together and everything, that he just was taking company money out, just doing a lot of stuff. And I guess some of the company money stuff he was doing, because I would assume him touching company money is kind of illegal. I don't think that's legal to do that. So, and probably got her in some tax, probably could have potentially, if it didn't, put her in some tax problems. And right now, her estranged husband doesn't pay child support unless they do it through the courts. It's just like, they're still not good. And apparently, sorry, I gotta adjust. This divorce has been going on for 2+ years. And we understand it now. It's actually really, it sounds extremely bad. And so we find all this out during this episode. Part of it we found out while she was at the location trying to open this restaurant. Hopefully we get to see the restaurant open, because this is the kind of thing I like to see on a show like this. A boss just really handling business. And the fact that she also has, you know, trying to remember, I think it's 3, right? No, 4. She has 4 kids, four girls. And she's handling business and doing this on her own, and also still being a business owner, entrepreneur the way she is. Love it. I love it. So this was an episode where we got to know just a little bit more about Kelly. And so far, I'm loving everything I'm learning about her. So there's that. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit more what's happening here. And we also see that Kelly and Britt. Sorry, Britt. I'm gonna get right. I promise I'm gonna get right. They clearly are pretty close with each other, and they talk a little bit more about this kind of stuff later on. Again, when Kelly's at Britt's house and they have like a dog date thing, because they both have like tiny dogs and stuff, and so that's kind of where they get a little bit more into it. But anyway, that's it for that. So the other thing that happened this episode is Angela Oakley. So we do get to Angela Oakley's house, and we learn more about how her and Charles met each other, and we see how ornery Charles is. Okay, I know a lot of the people who watch this show and maybe even watch this review are not basketball fans. I am, so I'm very aware of who Charles Oakley is, especially being from the Chi. Like, he's not from the Chi, but like he played for the Bulls before he got traded to the Knicks during the era where we were watching the Bulls. Like during that time, it was right before Jordan had like his became Jordan. Just to break it down. So let me give you just a little bit of a quick on that. So Charles Oakley was originally with the Chicago Bulls during like the early to mid 80s, I believe. So even a little bit before my time, but I'm a sports girl. I actually watch sports, especially basketball. I love basketball. And he actually was with the Bulls during the time when the Bulls weren't really winning like that yet. You could tell it was becoming a thing. But that in-between era so before the Bulls were the Bulls, it was the Lakers and the Celtics. It was like the Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. In between there's a little sprinkle of time that kind of froze for a second. You can hear my bias coming out just a little bit. Were the bad boys of Detroit. Okay? And that was with Isaiah Thomas, Van Beard. It was a whole entire thing. And young Dennis Rodman. Before Dennis Rodman was looking the way he looks today. Clean cut Dennis Rodman, but was throwing bows. Because everybody was throwing bows during that time in the NBA. And that was a time to watch the NBA. It was a true contact sport. It was wild. So during that era, the Bulls were starting to become a little something. And Michael, he was Michael, but he wasn't him yet. Like, the obstacle was the Detroit Pistons. And then once he cracked the code to like get that together, then the rest is history. Y'all know about the Jordan and the Jays and everything else. The rest was history after that. But I'm a firm believer that MJ would not have been MJ if it wasn't for the Detroit Pistons. Because Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, they were kind of in the latter years of their career, so they weren't really going to be as much of a threat as, and Michael Jordan was younger. So that's the whole thing. So anyway, during that time when this was happening, Charles Oakley was the Bulls enforcer, was just bam, just like, and everyone thought we were going to keep him. And then, like, the Chicago organization doing what they do best, which is somewhat self-sabotaging, traded him to the Knicks. It all worked out because Michael Jordan became him. But if you see the rest of our sporting history and how we don't really win anything now, especially the Bulls, they ain't done nothing since really Derrick Rose. It's the organization that it sucks. Our sports organization in the city sucks. Like, as much as we're sports people here, we really ain't got much to go up for at this point besides like the Chicago Sky. And that's the WNBA. So there's that. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to get my little nerd on, because outside of like us getting to know Angela and Charles Oakley, not much happened really in this scene. Because if you already know how Charles Oakley gives it up, none of this was surprising. And for me, so I was kind of like, okay. For me, it was kind of like watching paint dry, because I know how ornery Charles Oakley is, because I am aware of him. Like, but if you don't know him as a Real Housewife audience, this might have been some revelation to you about how ornery he is. But I mean, he got banned from Madison Square Garden kind of recently because he got in fisticuffs in recent years. I think it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But also the Knicks were being disrespectful towards him because he is a Knicks legend. Like, he ended up being a Knicks legend. Like, outside of his career in Chicago, he was also a Knicks legend when it came to New York Knicks. So that's neither here nor there. That's just a side note. But we found out how they met. They met when she lived in just Chicago still, because we also find out later on this episode that Angela is Drew's ally. This is actually the first season that Drew actually has an ally, and I'm not mad at it. I am so not mad at it. I've been wanting to have Drew have an ally, because I just thought, to me, I think that would be interesting to see that. To see, someone is actually going up for Drew and has her back, instead of just letting these people bully her. Because a lot of the girls on the show pre-other seasons tried to bully her. And it looks like this season, it ain't going to go down like that. So let's fast forward to that scene that I'm talking about. And so besides us getting to know Angela, which the verdict's still out about how I feel about her, outside of how she is riding at Don for Drew. I don't know how I feel about her as an individual. I feel like we still need to learn more about her. We learned the basic bio stuff, but we still don't know much about her, really. Like, to me, I feel like Kelly has made it obvious that this is her and this is who she is. I want to see more of Kelly. About that, I had to go get my food or whatever. But so So fast forward after Drew kind of opens up to Angela about what's going on, Shamia shows up, and then that's when they get the workout in. After they get their workout in, Angela's the one who asked this question. And so she was like, so Shamia, what was that about you asking that question about her? Is she effing Drew? Like, is Drew effing, Dennis? And Shamia, girl, she's like, did you ask that for you or did you ask that for Portia? And Angela, I saw what you did there because we know she's asking for Portia. She's riding it down for Portia. And the lady, and so Shamia's trying to answer Drew, but Angela's like, but I'm the one who asked you the question. She's like, oh, so you're piping up now. You're on mute at my party. And she's like, well, I'm the one who's asking you the question. You're not gonna like do all that to me. So they kind of get into a little tiff. And so we already are seeing, okay, Angela and Shamia are going to butt heads throughout this whole season. You kind of already see it happening. And Shamia's like, no, I want to know for me. I was curious, like, what's going on there? And Drew didn't say anything on, while in the moment, but in her confessional, she's like, yeah, it's giving Shamia is Portia's lapdog. And it kind of is. It kind of is. But we already know this is not going to last. It's not going to last because I think Shamia is going to learn what we've been trying to tell her this whole entire time. You are a great friend to Portia, but she is not a good friend to you. When it's time for you to need someone to write it down, unless it benefits Portia, I don't see it happening. Just saying. So that's kind of where they leave off. They end up okay because Drew didn't really push it too much further, but she just, clarified with Shamia, like, no, it's not that. It's strictly a business relationship. So that's that on that. Moving on. Oh, before I move on, really outside of that though, because to add to that, I mentioned all this even though it wasn't around the same scene. This was later on. Angela, we still don't know a lot about her, so I still don't know how I feel about her. It was an interesting choice to use this moment to, pipe up. But at the same time, I'm glad she did because Drew has always needed an ally on this show. So it's actually nice to see that Drew finally has an ally on this show. So we'll see how long it lasts though, because with Drew being the land of confusion that she is, who knows? But maybe the Chi-Town vibe is enough to keep them united. Who knows? Anyway, so outside of that, the only other scene that we had really from Shamia this episode is we actually got to meet Shamia with her surrogate who cared for her, for her last child. I think her last child's name, I think her name is Shiloh. And we find out why there's so many health issues with the baby. So, for those who don't know, Shamia's surrogate is also Candy's surrogate that she had with Blaze. I think it was Blaze. It was either Blaze or Ace. I don't remember which one it was, but the youngest, because I don't get I don't remember the names like that. But anyway, this surrogate that Shamia ended up using was referred to her by Candy. And then they show a flashback scene with Candy and this particular surrogate. And for those who've been following, this surrogate actually had health issues herself this last time around, which also led to the baby having issues. So it turned out that the surrogate, when she was pregnant with Shamia's child, it ended up being diagnosed with breast cancer. and it was a very aggressive version of like breast cancer. So therefore, the baby had to like leave yesterday. And Shamia, during this scene, we did get clarification because I think Shamia and a lot of us weren't sure. We didn't know if the hormones that was used to like do the surrogacy cause the cancer, because there are some breast cancers that are hormonal based cancers, and we didn't know if that's what it was. But it turned out it wasn't that. It was just like it was just horrible timing and a case of unfortunate events. So she did get clarity from that. Shamia does share how she does want to grow her family, but at this point, this particular surrogate, she's I don't think she's doing it anymore for obvious reasons, because it seems like she just recovered from that. But the surrogate does have recommendations for her for other surrogates that she can use so that Shamia can continue to grow her family. We also find out though why Shamia ended up needing to use a surrogate to begin with, her own difficulties with her pregnancy and how her tube burst on her fallopian tube burst and she almost died. So her ever carrying a child is just it's never going to happen for Shamia ever again. Because she did have a pregnancy and she almost died. And I did appreciate this scene so much, and I hope we get more of this from Shamia, because I think what a lot of us were a little bit worried about, mainly because we've only seen her in a friend of capacity to a certain extent. She really wasn't a friend of. She was just like she's been on the show. Like, we've seen her before. We know who she is. Is that we were concerned that she was not going to have any depth. And this was a little bit more of depth that we saw here. So hopefully we get more of this. But yeah, it's just a sad story, and I'm glad it's great that we're finally getting these type of stories out there more. But it's so common. It is so common, and that's the sad thing and the very unfortunate thing. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what we have here. Anyway, moving on. So then, the other person that we got to meet more of is Britt this episode. We were at Britt's house. We find out that her and her husband, they met during the pandemic. It actually was one of her clients at her insurance agency. And they hit it off, and then they end up like going to Vegas together. And they basically got married during the pandemic. So right now, this moment, when she was, so later on in this, not the same scene, another scene when Kelly does end up coming to her house, we find out that she is planning an actual ceremony because she didn't get to have the ceremony. They got kind of married via Zoom, like not a real wedding, basically. So they're trying to correct that. Outside of that, I don't know how I feel about Britt. I feel like with Britt, there's something like not genuine about her. There's something disingenuous about her. I don't know if y'all get that vibe, but I get that vibe. There's just something about her, I don't trust it. The husband, I don't know. I don't see the chemistry there. And maybe because it was a pandemic thing, they're talking about having kids and continuing their family, but even that conversation felt weird. I don't know. There's something about Britt I don't trust. And maybe I have a little bit of a bias because I am a Kenya fan. I'm not a twirl. I'm not team twirl. I don't stand for anybody. I only stand for me. Okay, so I'm not that. But even before things got to where it got to, I'm still trying to read the tea leaves to find out what happened there. Because it just seems like Britt is bothered by Kenya and was bothered by her from day one, unprovoked. I didn't like, I saw things that, like, I know my first review, I said that Kenya was kind of being shady. But Kenya, at times, she doesn't always mean to be shady. She's just, she's someone who's unintentionally shady. at times. There's times where she knows what she's doing, but there's other times where she's just being unintentionally shady, is not aware that what she's doing is coming off as shady. And I think in the case when she was like there at that party, I don't think she was really trying to be shady when she was asking the questions, because it was confusing. Like, you're wearing a giant ring with no wedding band. And typically when someone is married, they have the engagement ring and the wedding band. So I would have been confused too. I wouldn't have been as nosy about asking the questions the way she was asking them, but I still would have been confused. So I think, and we also saw in this episode when she was talking to Kelly, she kind of is not letting the mouse go. Like, she was talking about how like the ladies were being kind of shady. To me, it seems like Britt is intimidated by the OGs, because she also threw Cynthia under the bus a little bit when they were talking about the conflict between Kelly and Portia. And Kelly wasn't bothered by it nearly as much as Britt, which is weird because Kelly was the one who was more in it. Kelly was like, look, I'm just asking questions that we all want to know. She's like, yeah, we all want to know. And when I mean I want to know too. I'm glad Kelly did what she did. Now, I thought she kind of towards the end was doing it too much, but like it was great for TV. I'm not mad at it. You know, the fact that Portia really thought she was going to like duck and dodge the questions just because she skipped a couple seasons, that's wild to me that she thought she was going to do that. We didn't forget. Especially now, knowing how much of a scammer you did all that for a scammer. For a scammer. For the Nigerian prince scamming scheme. And I'm saying it like that because, child, you have to be a certain age when the AOLs and all that were happening. Remember when back in the day where you would get like these spams about African prince wanting to send you money or whatever the heck? Do y'all remember that in the early 2000s? Okay, maybe it was just me. I don't know, but I remember that scam where that was like a whole entire thing. We would get these phishing emails by African prince, and it was like back when like everyone had the AOL like email and stuff. It was back at the beginning of the internet. It was when the internet was really the Wild Wild West. I mean, it is still, but child, it was much worse before. I don't know why or how our parents allow us to be on that. Maybe because they know how to use it themselves, but child, neither here nor there. But like, Portia fell for that in real life. That's just kind of what it is. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. So outside of that, though, that's kind of all for me. That's back to Britt. That's kind of all that really happened with Britt. But I just got my good eye on her because there's just something about her and that whole situation I don't trust. Just saying. Anyway, so we do have a brief scene with Portia because the rest of this is going to be about Portia. So we do have a brief scene where Portia... Oh, Cynthia was not in this episode really at all, other than like the beginning of the episode, but she's a friend of. Kenya was on this episode more, so you could tell Kenya was originally supposed to be full-time housewife, and the way they really are doing Kenya dirty. The network did not like her. I don't think it was just that incident. I think they were glad that incident happened, so they had a reason. I'm just gonna throw it out there. But anyway, so Kenya and Portia, they meet up and they kind of go over the history of the nostalgia of it all, how they did not always get along, and now they're pretty much a united front because it was kind of nice to see that they're full circle and they're kind of good now. And they were talking about like them having, both of them having daughters kind of change how they both act towards each other. And I would say that's more of a Kenya thing to me than a Portia thing. I know Portia's trying to feed us this narrative that she's a changed person. But if y'all watch Portia Family Matters spinoff, you know that is a lie. That is a lie. And we saw a little bit of that come out towards the end of this episode. Just saying. Anyway, catch that tea. So they're talking about that, and then we find out that Portia learned so much more about how much of a scammer he was. It turned out that this man that she thought she was marrying has been married like 6 times. And she said two of them were not legal. But child, were any of the marriages legal? Okay, and this is just me. Anyone who's a lawyer, attorney, or something like that, can y'all really answer the question? Maybe I'll just go on my own time and ask one of my attorney friends, because I do have that question. How were any of the marriages here legal if he's not legally here? He was never legally here, and he was here under an illegal alias. And no one knows if like that's his real name, Simon Gubadia. No one knows if that's actually his real name. He's been illegally here in the States for like 15 years or whatever. Well, he ain't now. Like, I guess ICE went and got him. But like, were any of the marriages legal? Help me understand. But anyway, we find that out. And Kenya's like, and Kenya's the rest of us like, wait, what? But Kenya, you could tell Kenya's a different Kenya now. And you could tell Portia and her get along now. Because there was so much that was left on the table of things that could have been asked there that she kind of left alone. And I was just like, okay. Y'all really do have a treaty going on. Y'all are good. Because old Kenya, I feel like would ask a lot more questions. Because I'm still confused how come she's confused. I don't understand how the flags were all there. Everything was all there, but yet you didn't ask any questions? None? Child, anyway, so that's all that happens here. Let's move on to the final scene and what I put a pin in that we're going to talk about. So the final scene, dun dun dun. Portia finally meets up with Dennis, and they're there with Pilar. At like a funhouse situation. And they get to it finally. Portia states that she feels away. She asks Dennis what's going on with her and him and Drew. Dennis is like, it really is nothing. It's strictly business relationship. Portia saying that is not what Drew said. And it's like, that's not. And I'm just like, I don't know where Portia's coming from when it comes to this, because Portia, girl, I think you're putting 20 on 10, because Drew didn't say it wasn't a business relationship. She did not say that. She went around the mulberry bush and kind of fed you a little bit of some BS, but I think she did that on purpose to get under your skin. But she didn't say that wasn't a business relationship. You're putting 20 on 10 because you are triggered. And I love at the very beginning of this episode, she tried to say she wasn't bothered by all this, but she's clearly bothered. And so they get in, so they're talking about it. And then Portia's like, I don't want you to work with her at all. And Dennis is like, I'm going to continue to work with her. And she's like, why? He's like, well, the album was supposed to come out before the show happened, but things happened and got pushed back. The show that they're on. She's like, so if this will help promote the album, me filming with her, me talking about the album, I'm going to do that. And Portia's like, why are you doing that? You're not supporting me, this, that, and this, and she's like, I have a whole lot going on. I got this divorce going on, this, that, and this, and but it's like, Portia, how is that, number one, how is that Dennis's fault? That's your fault. Everything you have going on is your fault, Portia. It's all your fault. I'm sorry, not sorry. So you're going to try to stop this man from helping him make his money, because if they really are truly business partners, like I think they are, he probably put money into the project, so he's trying to recoup just like, Drew's trying to recoup. And side note, I did go on Drew's Instagram to listen to some of the music. It's hidden. She's doing a great job. She has a song that's sampling I Got Five on it. I like it. I just had to just throw it out there. It's actually kind of a bop. But yeah, no, like he's like, I have to, like, I'm going to promote it. And whatever I need to do that, I'm going to do that. And so Portia, being the most self-absorbed, selfish person she is, she's like, no one ever supports me. But do you support other people though, Portia? And Portia, I know you be throwing it. You've been throwing in her face about the go naked hair, which I'm gonna hold you. I am gonna give you your tens for that. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. Multitasking. So the other thing that I was gonna mention though is that Portia is she's playing a victim. And I guess that's why I just can't really get behind this, because Dennis wanted to be with you, but you decided you weren't going to put up with his cheating. And also, I feel like Candy and a lot of the other housewives, when you and Dennis first became a thing, let you know the kind of guy you were dealing with that is now your baby father. And also too, so I mean, really, I think if it wasn't for Portia being equally as toxic of a person, if not somewhat worse, I feel like we will feel differently. But because it's Portia, I don't feel a way about any of this. And so towards the end of the episode, she is going off and she's talking to the producers like she really thinks she's the star of the show, which I get it because they did pay some money to bring her back. But it's like, girl, it's the Real Housewives of Atlanta. It's not Portia's Family Matters. That did not go well, by the way. So what was the other thing I was going to mention? Oh, yeah. So what gets me is I feel like Portia is trying to pretend that we're not aware of her spinoff show. And I'm pretty sure it's still in Peacock. But if you saw that, you know how Portia really be giving it up. And I think the real reason why she doesn't want Dennis really filming with Drew, or really Dennis filming at all other than with her, is she can't control things. She's saying that, no, we have a great relationship now, this, that, and this, and that. But if you have such a great relationship, why are you worried about Dennis filming with other people besides you then, if the relationship is so great? Exactly. So it's kind of one of those things where it's just like, do you want us to pretend that we don't remember that you literally tried to assault his mom on national TV? All because y'all had just a simple agreement. She didn't call you outside your name or anything like that. If anything, you were the one who were being disrespectful. And the way you treat your family on that show. All to be with a scammer. I'm just going to put it out there. But anyway, towards the very end of the episode, though, after she's like going with the producers, she's talking to Dennis on in the car. And Dennis is like, you do realize you have a hot mic on, right? And she's still just going off. And like, so we're seeing the real Portia, not this version of her that she likes to put out there, that she's like this innocent, she didn't do nothing wrong person. We're seeing the Family Matters Portia towards the end. She really just does not want Dennis to be filming because she doesn't want the real her to be. She wants to hide the real her. She wants to give the presentation of her. And also, too, let's keep in mind, she is in the middle of a divorce. So I am going to throw her just a little bit of grace because she is in the middle of a divorce, and the real her, the way she is, that's not going to benefit for her when it comes to this divorce. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. Let me know if y'all feel differently than I do, but I don't. I just don't feel a way because it's like, I can't feel bad for someone who did all these things. It was very clear as day that this person was not who he said he was. You had all the red flags there They weren't even red flags. They were red barriers. They were right there. And you just bypassed them, still decided to marry this man because you thought you were going to come up on some money, but it turned out you married a scammer, and you're just basically, you two are just, at this point, it seems like you guys are just trying to out-scam each other. To me. That's how it looks to me. But anyway, that is kind of how the episode ended. It was an okay episode. I'm still not sure how I feel about the season so far. All I know is that Shamia, I want to learn more about you, but I need you to like not be so about Portia. Let us know more about you and stop fighting Portia's battles. Portia can windmill her own battles. She's done it multiple times before on this show. And also Kelly. I want to learn more about Kelly. And I want to see what led to what happened with Kenya. Because I'm not happy about Kenya not being on the show anymore. And I don't like how they're doing her, the producers. But anyway, that concludes the review. Please like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you get anything out of the content. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and I will see you next time. Bye.